Preface. What does it mean to close everyone? Opportunity often comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Napoleon Hill. This quote came in the nick of time. As I was reading it the other day, I was considering how many different ways it applies and how many times I have observed its truth both through self-experience and vicariously via my clients, friends, and associates these past couple of decades. And then it hit me. This explains why you do not close everyone. While it is not my intent to get into the context of this quote, suffice to say that it represents the idea that misfortune and defeat, times you gave up, instances you scrapped everything, all of these were not misfortunes, but near wins. It implies that everything you decided didn't work actually was working, but was not taken to full and proper term for whatever reason. I will tell you my errors. I have made many. Fortunately for both of us, I have made sufficient mistakes and misjudgments to have virtually reverse-engineered the entire screening talks process. But my main error was in a misunderstanding of the sales process and how it relates to persuasion, or, in this case, persuasive speaking. I should say that, as a side note, I consider that everyone who is trying to become great at speaking within any context should understand that, whether advocating a product or subject, reporting on quarterly statistics, or even giving a brief answer to the "tell me about yourself" question in a job interview, you are engaging in persuasive speaking, and persuasion and selling are nearly synonymous in this regard. Therefore, you students of public speaking who desire this skill or envy it in others should first decide for what you would use this skill. Consider why you would need the skill and for what you would use it. I would like to offer here that you study a practical application such as this one to get an idea of how it applies. That is a good point. Schooling teaches theory but seldom practical application. And where assignments are given for the speeches and talks of others to be observed, there still lacks reasoning of how this activity fits into a larger picture. What talks are used for and how they fit into the bigger picture of what one is attempting to do by and large are subjects which supersede speech theory in importance. The entire purpose of this book is to give to a profession seeking to heal the world a tool to advocate the concept of healing as well as a great way of doing it. Those who engage in the profession may be the primary readers of this work, but what a shining example it could be for someone in a parallel or even unrelated profession to see a practical example they themselves can apply in their own realm. In writing this book, I reached a few snags. The most prominent of which, as I realized halfway through these writings, was the fact that I didn't know exactly what I knew. While some may have called it writer's block, I would more call it a log jam of information I had stowed away in a storage locker I called personal knowledge. I nearly scrapped half of the content in favor of rearranging around ideas I had picked up here and there. So a first lesson you will learn here is one I learned about tapping your knowledge in order to impart it upon others. This, above all others, is an important primary lesson to learn as well as a basic ingredient to being a success on stage in any performance. It is one thing to be in possession of a deep well of knowledge and yet another to draw from it effectively. But to communicate knowledge to another so that they may apply it is an entirely different subject, one which is largely ignored or even unknown, much less practiced. I learned this lesson quickly when I got into coaching. I was a hotshot at face-to-face marketing, speaking, and writing. I persuaded thousands to follow up on my advice, to visit chiropractors, and to buy products. I won as far as these things are concerned. This is the reason for writing this book. But stop the presses. The first lesson I learned is that it is one thing to have knowledge, skill, and attendant confidence. It is quite another to impart it on others. You need to know what you know to be able to pull that one off, and I failed at it big time. It is in having conquered my own knowledge that I am now able to teach you how to roll like I roll, to get the results that I can and achieve similar success. And this is where we will start. You will need to realize next that closing someone or gaining their agreement requires them to be sold to some degree, but not on the end product. They need to be sold on the idea that they should listen to a sales pitch. Your talk is seldom, if ever, the sales pitch itself. It is the preliminary action that leads up to it. The basic misunderstanding of selling procedure is what blocks this process every time. Even if you are not selling anything per se, you still need to sell a main idea, an underlying principle to your audience. You, like I have in the past, hold in some faint regard that the talk you are giving is a sales pitch. You believe your skills in sales have failed you and, therefore, seek better sales skills. The frustration comes from the fact that it is a fallacy that you are doing an entire sales pitch in your talk, and trying to fix a sales problem only serve to further confuse the issue. Closing everyone requires of you a basic understanding that sales is a multi-step, systematic procedure with definite component parts that, even if done in one sitting, are yet themselves separate, individual, and significant. In other words, a talk is a part of a larger sales picture and one step on the way to achieving the ultimate end. In summary, to deliver a killer talk and crush it with your audience, you will need to find yourself before being yourself, clearly defining who you are and what it is you stand for. You will find this to be required before embarking on any campaign. Believe it or not, none of this will require any conquering of your fears, despite what conventional texts on public speaking will tell you about the concept of stage fright, an urban legend as far as I'm concerned. You will come to realize that when you choose to speak on a subject in which you are well-versed and confident and about which you are passionate, and in possessing keen understanding of the participants' views and how to control them in the lecture hall, stage fright does not exist, and your alleged fears will themselves melt away before your eyes, as they did for me in a story I will tell you from my earliest days performing on stage. You will need to understand your audience in a way you never thought possible, and develop the skill of getting inside their heads and getting a clue to what they know. Mel Gibson's character in the movie What Women Want achieved ultimate success in advertising and even dating when he found himself with the power to read women's minds. Knowing what they were thinking, he knew exactly how to reach and get them to respond. Here is a skill you could use, yes? The best talk you will ever give must perforce include your control of the audience and the topic itself. How many talks have you given in the past where you felt like the audience controlled you, and that you were merely a circus performer in the center ring, there to entertain and feed everyone for half an hour? You will need to learn that in crushing it at the lectern, while sometimes providing entertainment in its cleverness, you are not there to amuse anyone primarily. You are there to control them and get them to understand and take action. If you do this well, they will find it entertaining too. Done right, you will be able to change the topic and talk about what you want with full audience agreement. Keeping the conversation going is something of utmost importance. It is paramount in any speaking engagement. There is always a continuous message involved. Too many college classes present such a shallow view of this. Getting students to perform example speeches may help develop a skill, but not being real, it gives an apparency of other nonsense such as stage fright. I can get up on stage and speak until kingdom come about all the subjects I know, but I would be remiss if I didn't admit I would be a little nervous delivering a speech on a dummy topic. How will you ever stay natural? And how will you ever continue a conversation after a one-shot talk? You will need to learn that, in speaking on real subjects that matter, the talk is a mere part of a larger conversation on the subject, and that conversation must be kept going to get any result at all. Too many books relegate this to follow-up. I call it a continuous conversation. Undoubtedly in your journey through this material, you will find that you will not need to shift your paradigm or change your mindset about these things. You will find that happening naturally as you redefine what it means to persuade and sell, instilling inspiration into your audience. Your understanding will increase proportionately, and you will find less significance in the talk itself and much more interest in the overall campaign strategy. And, oh yeah, you will need the skill of planning and strategy when it comes to these things. Did I mention that? Another important factor you will need to confront and address is your own censorship of your material. You will need to find out the various hats you wear in your endeavors and wear only the ones that apply to the situation at hand. Specifically, this means not imparting all of your knowledge in a talk. Part of getting people to take action will include the skill of getting them to want to know more. This includes for not telling all, but only just enough to get action. One skill you may not know you possess is that of an expert on your subject matter. You will need to adopt a viewpoint of altitude, not of importance, but expertise in relation to your audience. With such expertise alone, you will be able to command an audience and call them properly to action they actually take, rather than beg or merely ask for it. This is not just a book on public speaking. There are plenty of them. I am not a mere public speaker. I am an advocate, a professional, and an expert. So are you, for that matter. What I have presented here is a journey for you into the depths of your core being, where you will discover the thing about which you are most passionate, and that is something that contributes to the world and gives aid, assistance, or help to others to the improvement of all. It serves to bring this out as a primary factor and proves out inability. In other words, when you uncover true passion, you will exude it and inspire others into action. Everyone will want to be on board with you, naturally and organically, with no trickery, techniques, or gags, fun as these things are. What I will give you in this book is not only a bunch of tips on how to give a better talk, but a breakdown of the sales process and a perspective on giving talks as to how it fits into the larger sales picture and process. You will be relieved to find out that closing skills are not required, because when a talk is done right and when the other pieces are in place, it becomes simple, easy, and surprisingly fun. In the coming pages, you will learn that sales are predicated upon lead generation, opportunities for enlightenment, limited education, inflation of interest in the prospects, development of questions and curiosity, as well as a stern expert recommendation to take the next step, the step across the threshold to your clinic. You will undoubtedly be shocked, as have been many before you, to find out that the talks process does not include talking about chiropractic, handling negatives about it, explaining what it does, or anything about effective treatment of conditions. In fact, you will find out, as did I after thousands of screenings, that any of these things done in public to an unindoctrinated audience will kill your chances of getting the majority as patients. Closing everyone requires no patience, willpower, stress, or even a second thought when you understand the entirety of the sales process, where talks fit in, and what it is you are attempting to accomplish. So buckle in, we're about to punch it and get you to close everyone. Let's start with step 0.